This is the ERP Advisor.
Today's episode, Avoiding ERP Implementation Failures.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's CPE webinar, Avoiding ERP Implementation Failures. In this CPE presentation, our presenter will be discussing how to tackle one of the hardest things that you can during an ERP project, and that is implementation, how to keep that from falling apart, and then ultimately what businesses can do to help their projects succeed. During this seminar, we'll be covering the following learning objectives: defining implementation success for your ERP project, knowing what is involved in each milestone of an ERP implementation, and preventing the biggest risks for each milestone. Today's presentation is valid for 1 CPE credit. In order to receive that credit, you are going to need to attend the full presentation. If you are needing CPE credit for today's presentation, please leave your name in the chat of this Zoom or send an email to elizabeth.jones@erpadvisorsgroup.com. That email is in the chat, so it's very easy to access. Shawn Windle is our presenter for today. Shawn is the founder and managing principal of ERP Advisors Group based in Denver, Colorado. Shawn has worked in the enterprise software industry for almost 30 years. He started his career at Accenture and Arthur Andersen Business Consulting and moved into the software industry with Oracle as a technology product manager. There are only a few people in the world with the practical software experience that Shawn has gained with helping hundreds of clients across many industries with selecting and implementing a wide variety of enterprise solutions. His podcast, The ERP Advisor, has hundreds of episodes with tens of thousands of downloads and is featured on prominent podcast platforms such as Apple and Spotify. And before we get started, there will be a short question and answer period at the very end of this presentation. So please stick around if you have any questions or put them in the chat and we will be taking a look at that. Elizabeth is moderating this session, as well as the resources. With our new platform, as everyone can see, things are a little bit different if you've attended one of our CPEs before. The resources are available in that resource tab. You can download the deck without the questions, or you can schedule a free consultation with us if you need any help with your ERP project. Shawn, if you are ready, I will pass it over to you to begin our presentation today.
Thank you, Rebecca, for your introduction and for getting everything set up, and let's go. Good. So hi, everybody. As you know me, Rebecca just introduced me. She said enough. I will tell you, though, if you actually go back to that last slide, I do think it is important that as you listen to this, and again, make sure you do all the requirements that are needed for the continuing professional education. You do need to understand something. We are extremely independent and objective as a firm. Along the almost 16 years that we've been in business, we've become one of the top firms, really kind of globally, believe it or not. I'm not sure I believe that, but that's actually true. We're about 40 people, so not a huge firm over some of the other companies, certainly I've worked for, as Rebecca said. But the bigger deal is that this is all we do for our clients. We only advise them on enterprise resource planning, human capital management, customer relationship management. You mentioned the software packages, we advise on that. But it's important because we're truly, as I said, independent and unbiased. We have a great methodology based on our Big Four background and other areas. And ultimately, we love working with mid-sized organizations that, to be totally honest with you, must have successful projects. You cannot afford to make a decision on enterprise software that's wrong. And so we are all in with our clients to ensure that they get it right. And as you can see too, we're very, very proud of the awards and sponsorships that we do for some great organizations in Denver and really around the entire country and even bigger. So that's the context that I'll be presenting from today, is hopefully that we are preventing major failures that you would have had you not done this CPE event. So with that, let's jump into it. So our next slide here. So each one of these slides, and if you would like this deck, I think we can send this out. I think Rebecca put her email or Elizabeth's email into the chat. Go ahead and just let us know if you'd like a copy of these slides.
Shawn, just to hop in here, it is also available in the resources tab for everybody in this presentation. You can download it right now if you would like to follow along.
Perfect. Okay, good. And you can always reference back to this as well too in the future, because I'm going to cover a lot of stuff. And I'm going to kind of dive in on a couple key things. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to go through here. And my goal is not to overwhelm you, but to really educate you and help you to understand that ERP implementations, frankly, are the success, the likelihood of success, the probability is, if you look at different organizations that make money by scaring you into thinking that the projects are not possible to be successful, they're pretty high, frankly. That there's a lot of risk, but there's also a lot of things you can do for that not to happen, and that's the vein that we're going to talk to you from here. So here's the thing that that when we talk about success criteria, let's see, I think we just got a little chat there, Rebecca, if you can check that out, or Elizabeth, about something on the scene there. Make sure everything's, I think I see the screen perfectly. I hope everybody else does too. But here's the thing with ERP implementation, specifically around success criteria, right? Success equals expectations being met equals quantifiable, measurable criteria. And then you also look at strategic and tactical goals. And if you kind of pull the criteria, the strategy where we're going, maybe the next level down tactical, you'll see that there's a nice relationship between, is our project a success or not? What are we trying to do with this? And what actually gets done, and how do we do that? Oof, there was a lot I just said there. Let me break that down a little bit for you. So what I mean is that strategically, like the slide says here, there really needs to be a very simple strategic driver for an ERP implementation in general. Even before you look at new software, you have to look at some of the things and some of the reasons why companies and organizations, I'll just say organizations generally, these are for-profit, nonprofit, government entities, public companies, all that kind of stuff, right? We're going to talk about everybody here. You have to have some key strategic goals to change out your ERP. It's so freaking hard. If you don't have obvious strategic goals, then I wouldn't do it. I frankly wouldn't do it if I were you. And I mean that. And this is good because it also helps you to understand getting support for an ERP implementation. Surprisingly, now that I really think about it, sometimes it's a lot easier than I think it is. You may disagree with me. Put it in the chat. Let's talk. I'm ready to go, toe to toe. I've done these a few times, and I'm sure a lot of people on this call have done it as well. But it's amazing to me how many folks we talk to, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to change out our ERP. And we say, great, why? And they're like, well, because we have to. Okay, perfect. What's the why? Oh, we outgrew our old software. Oh, okay, well, what specifically, the 5 whys, that Kanban system thing about getting to the real why. And they don't know. They're like, well, we just thought we had to because of our software's old, or we've outgrown QuickBooks, or whatever it is. And I mean, we won't even take on a client, even start helping them unless we can obviously see that there's a strategic reason why they need to switch their ERP, because you're going to spend a lot of time on the project, you're going to spend a lot of money on it, and you're going to spend a lot of heartache. So there's got to be the strategic drivers. Some of those we see here are support new business models, meet regulatory compliance, reduce dependency on legacy technology. And those are all kind of the niceties that we can put in a deck. But really behind each one of these, if you look at it, there's usually things like, we barely made our audit last year, or maybe we had a material weakness, or maybe we had the IT controls was at risk. When you talk about meeting regulatory compliance, right? We might not say those things out loud, but those are some of the things there. It could be that the person who wrote the application is going to be retiring, like many people are by 2030, and they would like to move on and retire. Let's give them that opportunity, except they're running the application day in and day out, and they're the only one who knows it, right? So we kind of talk strategy and fancy and da-da-da, but it kind of gets into some like nitty-gritty, kind of dirty reasons there on the strategy side. So those are just some key things there. Now, of course, there's also, if you go back real quick, There's also tactical things that you have to keep in mind too that should just come out from changing to a new software platform. Unless you've been on your existing platform for maybe 5 years, if you've been on something for 6 or more, I can almost guarantee you, no, I would guarantee you that by switching and doing the implementation correctly, you will meet some tactical needs. And when we talk about tactical, we're really talking about measurable, quantifiable, like monetization, right, of benefits that you would get from moving from your old software to a new ERP platform, and things like reducing manual work, and whether it's through AI or it's through just the use of the application. Always our clients find processes that have been built out in their new apps that weren't there before in the old. Implementing internal controls, those are things that you can look at that are maybe there's the quantifiable benefit isn't as much as just like the risk to the owners of the organization. We just actually just recently here in Denver, I saw something that was listed in the paper of a company that I had worked for 20 years ago, and there was embezzlement that was occurring, and somebody just went to jail for that. Literally, I think it was about 15 years ago that happened. Internal controls, they're important. And then also just providing visibility of the key metrics and just getting access to data so that you can make decisions faster, and you can save, a couple points on EBITDA, and that makes a huge difference. So there's got to be obvious reasons, guys. I could get a heck of a lot more fancy. We could dive into more details, but I've said enough. There's got to be strategic and tactical reasons. So with that, let's go to our first question. And again, if you are looking to do CPE, I need you to stay awake enough to fill out the poll here. And you'll see some questions are going to pop up here. So the first question, I'm sorry, is your implementation success criteria should include strategic criteria, tactical criteria, or all the above. I really, after doing, I think just with ERP Advisors group, I can actually look at this. I shouldn't do this during this call, but I'm going to just look at this. We have talked to over 1,200 companies and organizations in the last 15 years. And we are on project number, I think I can go here, 629. I don't know how we do that many projects. That's crazy, but literally in thousands and thousands of companies that we've talked to. Surprisingly, sometimes they don't have, if you go to the next slide here, Rebecca, both. You've got to have both criteria. All right, I've said enough. Good. Now, the next one here. So now that I've hopefully made you aware of kind of the why you need it, there's got to be a really strong why. I'm actually just going to tell you how to make a successful implementation. And it's not rocket science, although some of the companies that make the rockets and aerospace and design and defense companies we've worked with, sometimes they need the simplicity of what I'm about to tell you. But a very simple milestone-based approach, of course, makes a ton of sense. And most, I think, people understand that. But what they kind of lose track of is you actually have to do each task. And this is the thing with ERP. Oh man, this is the thing. A project never fails because somebody didn't know there was a problem. Somebody always knows that one of these, say, 8 steps here didn't get done. Somebody knew that. Somebody knew that we didn't train those users. Yeah, maybe we got that set of users, but we didn't do those. And then we went live, and all of a sudden, those users we didn't train were customer support, and we couldn't enter orders for a month. One of my first projects when I worked with the last accounting firm I was at, that was my first project, was going into a business, about $100 million distributor, and analyzing what happened with their implementation. And frankly, they didn't train the right people. And so when they did go live and those people had to use the app, they said, this is terrible. Like, this does not do what we need it to do. Now, one could say that maybe there's an earlier step, testing, that didn't happen. But the bottom line is that, these steps, each one of them are just integral. So let me just talk about them kind of briefly here. So a lot of people, when you start an ERP implementation, a lot of people don't know where to even start. There's all the pre-work of just getting the agreement to do it, making sure the business case is there, and selecting the right software, selecting the right implementation partner. I can't say that enough. Like I remember getting quoted a long time ago in Tech Target, I think it was, and my little quote said, "Select an implementation partner that you're willing to bet your job on because you are." That's even before the initiate project, right? The step zero, the needs analysis and the selection. We got a ton of materials on our website on all that stuff. Please use it. I'm talking to them blue in the face, more red these days, about all this stuff. Rebecca, like she's on me every week. Shawn, we need to get more content out. Erica on our team and Adam and Elizabeth, we got to get this content out. We've done this because it's helpful. So just know those steps are out there. They're on the site. You can find them. Now you decide it's time to go. We initiate a project. And that really is getting the key stakeholders together and saying, okay, this is what we're looking to accomplish. Here's how we're going to get there. Speak now or forever hold your peace. That's basically what you're saying in initiate. But you really are soliciting and tying in shareholders, the stakeholders of the project, so that they all know it's coming, first off. And secondly, that they're aware of the expectation of them. They won't hear it and even know what to do yet, but at least you tell them. And then thirdly, that you do start creating confidence across your organization that you know what you're doing. And so do those steps and initiate. Course analyze. This gets into please don't just say requirements analysis. No, it's not. You've got to start higher level. You've got to start with, the needs across the departments, the divisions of the organization that are impacted by the software. Then you can go into requirements. A lot of folks go, hey, we kicked off a project. Great. Let's talk about exactly how our customer fields are going to get configured. Nope, you lost the whole game if you start doing that from the get-go. You got to figure out who your customers are, because they probably changed since the last time you did a project. And now maybe your customers, who used to be manufacturers, now you have retailers as your customers, and you have maybe some public companies. Maybe you've got some defense that you're doing, right? You kind of need to start with your needs. It's called iterations, and on a gradient, high level requirements, go into the next level of detail, then the next level of detail. Man, these are like key tips. I hope my team watches this too. They should have this as part of our methodology. And at the exact same time, I would absolutely start on my data. Clean your data. Start by cleaning your data. Identify what your data sources are. Oh, we know it's in our old ACT database, our customer relationship management system. That's where all of our customers are. Really? Are you sure? Absolutely. Okay, great. We pull all the data, we get it cleaned, and it's ready to go. And we do a load into the new system, and the users look at it and say, but where's all my customers? They're not in here. Well, we pulled everything out of ACT. Are there other sources? Well, of course there are. We use these 5 spreadsheets across the organization to track customers. It's got to go in. So just finding where your legacy data is a huge step on 3. That's why you always start the data right away, because there'll be so many things that you'll discover that the sooner you discover those and kind of get through those decisions, the better off you're going to be. Then, of course, there's configuring the software. And this is what your implementation partner will do. Maybe you'll use the professional services for the organization you're with. But that's really setting up the application according to your specifications and your needs. And I'm going to tell you something I've never said on any call, and I've done hundreds and hundreds of these. They're going to get it wrong every single time, the first time. Always. I hope I got your attention when I said that. Never expect the software to be configured exactly as you need it. It will not be. I don't know what's happened with the English language or other languages that we do business in. We've done some Spanish, some German, other things. The developer, the people that are developing your app, never exactly understand what you're saying. Now, maybe you didn't say it very clearly, or maybe you didn't know what you were talking about. That could be. Just say it. Or it could be that, while they were doing your requirements analysis, they were working on their emails during that call. That happens. Or most likely it is that there's just such a gap between, well, this is the way we do business and everybody does business this way. And the vendor, the technical configuration people are like, that's not true. This is actually how it's done. So you've got to close that gap as soon as you can. Integrations. All of our clients have some kind of wonky integration that they're doing, whether it's through a 3PL, a third-party logistics provider, bank, other apps, whatever. And those things are just complex. You got to start on those early, get those all designed and built. And then finally, you have an app. Like you actually have that's funny. I would say that. To me, that makes perfect sense. Here's how I want you to look at this. I want you to look at your software as a product, as something that's built, just like you would a laptop or a watch, or I had a piece of beef jerky earlier. I don't know about jerky, but look at it like something that gets built and manufactured. If you think about software that way, then you know, okay, now we can test that product. We can go in and we can start using it. The only difference is like this jerky. We should like get some money from these guys because I'm about to get a good plug in. I love these things, these chomps, get them at Costco. I've never plugged food before on a podcast. My team's probably like, what are you doing, Shawn? I'm trying to make an analogy, guys. I love this stuff. My wife tastes it and she's like, this is horrible. She's not into tube meat, she calls it. Um, but see, it's a great example because when you look at software, the developer says this is perfect. You look at it and say, oh my gosh, this is completely wrong. It's very, what's the right word to say this? It's it's the perspective that you bring to looking at software that's uniquely yours. So the sooner you see the product, and I'm saying you, and I mean all of your team that's going to be using the software, the sooner they see it for real and stop yapping about it. Ah, don't yap about the damn thing. I'm going to say damn because I just did. But don't yap about the damn thing over and over and over. We need this. We need that. We need this. We need that. Oh my God, you're going to, first your developers, you know what they're going to do? They're going to go work on another client who wants a product sooner. Stop talking and get a version of the software in front of you. And I'm not some big advocate for extreme programming and, all of the just the different kinds of development methodologies. I mean, that's fine. We're not going to get into that. What I'm trying to say is if you think about software as a product, you will look at a product, you'll play with the product, you'll touch it. You can't, but you can't like smell it or whatever, like you can jerky. But you've got to get in there and start using it. The sooner you get into using it, the better off you are. And I will tell you one thing on that too. Take your expectations for the software because they're going to be high. Well, our other app did this and that and that and that. Okay, you mean the one you custom built over 30 years? Okay, yeah, I did all that stuff. I got it. Now your packaged application is going to do this. Oh my God, there's a huge gap there. What are we going to do? Our whole business is going to shut down. Yeah, but the other thing though is that our technology risk just went way down because we're on a new platform that has things like cybersecurity testing done. But it also has a lot of other things like not just AI and workflow and email distribution and all these tools built into it, but there's other functionality you're going to be able to leverage that's going to actually make the out-of-the-box solution go above the screen. And it's going to make the value of the application and the enterprise value, the value that your enterprise will get from that new product will be 10 times higher than your legacy app. It might not print the invoices, the 10 or 20 different ways that you want to out of the box when you start, but it does all of the development and processing configurations and calculations that somebody used to do in a spreadsheet in the app. So when you're doing user acceptance testing, what I'm trying to say is you have to keep a mindset towards the future and the greater good of your organization. You might not get everything you want in phase one, but I'm telling you, it'd be better to just get the phase one done so that then you can continuously enhance the product over time. I've made my point. I'm yapping too much, but you can tell it's a sore spot. We had a client recently, love these guys, absolutely love them. And they keep on adding more and more and more and more requirements, and it requires more testing. And by the time the users get to the testing a month later, they find more problems, and then another month passes, and then another month passes, and meanwhile, yeah, you're out there, a year or something. That is the recipe for failure. Fortunately, we figured out what to do with them. They're gonna be fine. Training users, I could spend as much time blabbering about that one as I did the other ones. The most important thing is the sooner that the end users are in the product, the better, so they can give you better feedback. And sometimes that feedback is like, hey, this is great. And you think to yourself, not really, but you write it down in an enhancement log for the future. And maybe you get to that, right? Other times the users say, I can't enter orders. Ooh, I better know that soon. Don't leave out key training or key user groups for sure in your training. And then when you go live, please have a margarita machine, have a bunch of beef jerky, like Chomps, brought to you by Chomps. Do something fun, bring in some Mexican food. I must be thinking about Mexican food right now. Or just, do gift baskets. Like we always bring in cookies and stuff for our team, for our clients, and they're going live. Do something special for these poor people because they're going to work around the clock getting all this stuff right. So I'm telling you right there, I just gave away our methodology. Take it, use it. There's a lot more to it, but I should probably move on if I haven't lost you already.
No, we actually had a question, Shawn, so I'm gonna
Oh,
hop
good.
just because it's relevant for this moment. Where does generation of reports happen within this timeline?
Oh man. I mean, here's the thing. I'm feeling very I think honest with you guys today. There is a 99% chance. No, there's 1,000% chance that the system already has the report that you need. You're not going to think it's good enough. You're going to want to customize a report. It's going to add more scope to the project, and your project's going to get delayed. I'm telling you, the best thing to do is go with the out of the box reports. And there's that little button in the upper right corner that says export to CSV on every single app, certainly that we're working with. And then you can kind of, build your own. Oh, but now we've got reports out of the ERP, but the source data is in the one place. The thing about reports is that, one person, right, has these tons of requirements for the reports. And then I don't know, that person leaves the organization. And then that person's gone, and then the next person comes in and is like, why? This isn't how the data should be developed. It should be this way. So the bottom line, and I've done this for a few years, is of course in your analyze step, you should look at the report development unequivocally, right? And there's always, we call it the big kahuna report. Every client has a big kahuna report that they need, and you better dang well believe that should be designed up front because like if you want some, like we had a mining company, right? And they wanted weights and things that aren't in a normal ERP as part of their reports. Well, we got to figure out where to put that stuff. So unequivocally, you should look at it in the analyze. But I would tell you, to be totally honest with you, what you're really building the system for to start with is ensuring that all the data that you need is in there, the visualization, the representation, kicking it out to a BI platform, going to, we're doing a ton of data warehousing and analytics systems and all this stuff, especially with AWS and even Azure and stuff like that. The reports can be very easy to build. So don't get caught on that for sure. Make sure that the elements that are in the reports are in the system and you should be set to go. But definitely the analyze, you should at least look at it. Good. All right. So here's the next question for you all. Which of the following is not an implementation milestone? Configure software, cleanse your data, or train your users. That's an interesting one. I will tell you that might not be a milestone, but it is a part of one of the steps that was a milestone. But this is a tricky question. We have a client going live. We actually have several clients going live at the end of the month. Yeah, tell me, Rebecca, when we get the answers in there.
We're going to give people a little bit longer because we're only at about 30 seconds.
Okay, perfect. This step that is the answer here turned out to be vital for their success for sure. So even though it might not be an implementation milestone, cleanse your data is a step under the data migration. But I do want you to just keep that in mind that, the data, anyway, I've said it enough. It really can be a make break point. It's like moving, from your current house to a new house, and you just don't move all your furniture over. Now, sometimes you need to get rid of stuff, get rid of it, right? But like things like a kitchen table or whatever, maybe you buy a new one. But you've got to move your stuff over. And so do a good job of cleansing it for sure. But it is a more detailed step than the others. Good. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I think we're going to talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls here. I think if we go to the next slide, these are some of the very specific things that we've run into just recently based on that methodology that we just showed you, of some things to really, really, really watch out for. So under initiation, when you're setting up a project, it's very easy to say, hey, we hired an implementation partner and they're going to take care of everything. I think most organizations and people, sponsors, like you all that are probably on this call, that's why you're spending the time here. You're savvy, like you get it. You get that, you don't just hire a company to come in and then they just set up the software. It's never that easy, right? The client side has to have people that are dedicated to the project, or the client side tasks don't get done. And one of the key roles is to have a project manager that's available to spend a good chunk of time through the whole implementation. That's our methodology right there for the key tasks of the key milestones, a little bit more detailed than we just talked about before. But you really do need to have a person on your side who's thinking with managing the project manager. Oh, that's easy, Shawn, check. We got that handled because we've got a project manager that's been a project manager for 20 years, right? And they do da-da-da-da. Well, they got to have a little software background and understanding of software so that they can make sure that everybody who has stuff to do is actually doing all those things and then it's actually getting done. So that's a big one to watch out for. Have somebody, I can tell you this, that for some of our projects, I would say maybe the make break point, the scope comes into it, size of your company comes into it, but you may even need a full-time person to just make sure to run everybody, whether it's the external partner or your internal people, your data migrations, your integrations, all that stuff. You might need a full-time person if your company is, say, 100 million in revenue. You have a lot of SKUs. If you're a wholesale distributor, a lot of complexity. The more complexity, the more people that are involved, the more you need somebody internally to be your champion that's going to drive the project on a day-to-day basis. And it could become their full-time job, but at least plan on somebody for part-time to be running things. Now, they might also have another hat in the project. That's common too, but please make sure you have somebody designated on your side. All right, enough said on that one. Good. All right, next question. Your project manager needs to be able to spend 20 plus hours per week running your ERP project. I think that's more to just make sure you guys are awake than anything. But again, we've had some clients that come to us that they know they need help, but they don't realize we're sometimes the first people to tell them, well, we can't email the detailed people in the organization and tell them they need to do this and need to do that. They don't know who we are. We're just the consultants. Like sometimes you need somebody who's got a lot of credibility and goodwill in the organization to kind of keep pushing people along. So it's very important that project manager is designated early and you get somebody who's a good person. Like some folks will go out and hire a project manager, like a PMP, a project management professional person or whatever. And that person just has to have the ability to communicate with a lot of care to others. All right. We got the answer back on that one. Good. So let's go to our next pitfall. All right. So around the analysis, that analyze phase, it is easy for a project to get started get rolling, and we hire an implementation firm, and they come in and they start gathering requirements. Remember, we said start high, go into detail. And sales. Sales is too busy to meet with the team, right? Maybe accounting, maybe the sponsors, the CFO or controller. We're driving the project from a different division, and there's another division that they're not showing up to meetings. They're just busy. Now, hopefully your project managers can help to make that happen and get them there, but it can happen for sure. So you want to make sure that you've got the right stakeholders involved in the project, and that they are going to be busy, right? That they better be. They have a day job, right? Now we're asking them to come to, it's only 8 sessions over the next 2 weeks that we need to collect the requirements. The implementation partners sometimes, the folks that set up those calls, they don't realize that everybody has a full-time job. So it is, though, important that you do get these people to show up, and the earlier the better, so that you start to hear kind of what their expectations are, but also so that they are providing feedback into the software. And even just the fact that they're providing the feedback, regardless of what they're saying, but they're in the meetings and they're involved, puts you in a position where you're more likely to get their support later because you gave them a chance to talk about it. So if they're not showing up at meetings, that's a big red flag. This is why executive sponsorship, you need to go all the way to the top for sure with your CEO, where sometimes you do have to make that call and say, hey, these folks aren't, making themselves available. And the CEO may say, well, of course, it's our busy season. Well, maybe we should have waited to start, right? So you've got to think through some of those things up front. But also the other thing on this slide that I would like to say is that second point. Projects, like I said, they don't fail because somebody didn't know there was a problem, right? The perfect example is chart of accounts development. That happens pretty early on in a project if you have the accounting portion. And sometimes it can take a team months and months and months to come up with the final COA, right? COA. The problem is if it took months and months and months, and the value, or the team, the internal team is working on this, the consultants are sitting around like, hey, wait a minute, what about us? Except here's the problem. They don't sit around anymore and bill you like they used to when I started in ERP. They don't sit around waiting for you. They go on to the next client, and they're working on somebody else's stuff while you're making decisions. So it really is important that your subject matter experts, when they have key decisions, make the best decision that you can at that time. And you will learn more through the process, right? And I'm here to tell you that your first COA is probably not going to be the last version of that chart of accounts. You're going to learn more through the process, and you're going to wish your consultants told you more about it earlier, for sure. And oh my gosh, Shawn, but what if we design it wrong and we make the wrong decision? It can happen, but it's more important to make a decision than to make no decision and move through it, and learn as you go. So definitely have to make those key decisions during the analysis phase as best you can. All right, let's go to our next pitfall. All right, so pitfalls of data migration. Now this is the thing that you again have to remember with a new ERP, any software, custom software, packaged software of any kind. They're worthless without your data in it. I mean, completely worthless. Like if somebody said, hey, I'll give you NetSuite, but you don't get your data in it, you'd be like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, I don't want to play with the app. It's worthless. What makes it valuable is your data being in the product. And don't forget that, especially if you need help with the data migration and you need a business case for why you need that help. So therefore, you've got to start cleaning up your data, understanding where it's at, who can get to that data, like a person. Oh, we know it's in our old Oracle e-business suite. Okay, well, who knows the custom tables that were built in our old version of Oracle EBS? Who knows where to run the reports out of the old system to get the data, right? Those are people that need to know this stuff, right? Hopefully they're still around. So even finding and getting all that done, much less than pulling the data, reviewing the data, cleaning out your customers, your vendors, everything. I can go on and on and on. Getting all that cleaned up early is a great thing to do because because the transgressions of the past can be cleaned up. You have to do that first before then you can push all your POs into the new system. Please don't bring all of your old junk in. You don't need that, right? And then actually doing the extraction early so that you understand the technology of how to do the extraction, that you can do it. And then, also setting expectations with management in terms of budget. That's what that second bullet is code for. You probably need budget for data migration assistance. It's really helpful because having other people that can do your data for you while you're working on the really hard parts of the app, it's kind of like house cleaning. A lot of people outsource house cleaning. Why do they do that? Why do you personally outsource that step? Well, because it's relatively easy to pass the hat of the vacuuming and the cleaning, the scrubbing and the this and the that. And you can hire somebody who can come in, our kids, we used to do a lot with the kiddos back when they were younger. And they could do a ton of stuff, right? I cleaned my house growing up a lot. I still do. Vacuum once, twice a week. But the point I'm trying to say there is that it's an easy hat to pass on data migration, cleansing, and extraction. You can bring in some other technical people and they can help with that. But you still need some guidance on, how did you exactly configure your app? You've got to have that as well. Okay, good. Now, integrations. So what happens on integrations is you forget about them. Or most likely you talk about them up front and get so busy on the app that then later on you get near the end of the project. You're like, okay, good. So we've got that integration with our CRM system still that we need to have to get the order over to get it fulfilled. Who built that? Oh, well, nobody did. Wait a minute, we're a month from go live and the integration isn't ready. And then bam, your project gets pushed because the integration, you have to go find somebody to write the integration, or you got to go to Boomi, or you got to go, good friend of mine works for Web Methods. He does Web Methods stuff. That stuff is like $1 million to build an integration. And you find out about that late in your project. Don't do that. Really look at the integrations earlier, like I said earlier. In this presentation, and you will probably need an implementation partner who will do those integrations. Oh, that's fine, Shawn. We hired blah firm that is implementing our Infor Cloud Suite Industrial, and they'll do the integrations. No, they won't. They don't have expertise on those integrations. Usually you have to go to a different firm for that. Now that your implementation partner can help you find a partner that can do those integrations. So talk to your implementation partner early about integrations. Oh yeah, Shawn, we got that in our statement of work. It's fine. Okay, but just don't forget about them. Like you won't forget about them now that we've had this discussion, I'm sure. You can imagine how I am with my kids about that kind of stuff. All right, and then beginning to oversee integrations too late in the process, leading to disappointment at go live, right? We had a big project that we got involved with late that pushed because their big e-commerce integration, they thought the sponsor thought somebody else was doing it, it wasn't getting done, got into it and realized we needed to go to a different company to get a different kind of integration plugin. And it was a disaster. Fortunately got them through that for sure, but it was too bad. It didn't have to happen. All right, let's go to the next one. I think I'm being too negative here today. I'm talking about these in too much detail, but I think we're almost done with a few of these. We've got just a couple more to go. I talked a lot about user acceptance training, UAT, you might hear that. Well, this actually should say user acceptance testing at the top. Sorry about that. This is testing. And I like the little cuss words up there. You see those little things. It really is, it's a tough situation when users go in to test and the app doesn't do what they expect it to do. And they get mad and they lose confidence in your product and they lose confidence in the project. So like I said, you got to bite the bullet and get the software in front of your users as fast as you can, but you do need to have the minimum viable product there so that they can see their business and how they would operate in it. And if they can't, then you can ask for their forgiveness up front even and set a very low expectation and say, we wanted to get something in front of you. We want to get some feedback from you. And you hope like heck that it's better, right? But you can't wait till the end with all the configuration being done. The sooner you can get it tested, sooner you can get them involved. It's really just getting them invested in the software, your users early, so that then they're willing to most likely compromise on kind of, how we used to do it in the old system and now how we're going to do it in the new system, and say, oh, I can see it actually, right? And as long as you have a small portion of your users that are opinion leaders that are saying, I can see how we can run these processes in the system, they can disseminate across others and build that confidence for you for sure. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, so a pitfall of user acceptance testing. Not having super users test the system, not having super users document failures in the system, waiting until all configuration is done to test it. So pitfalls here are all the above. We do all kinds of smart sheets and all kinds of tools to just track not just the failures, the user acceptance cases, the testing cases that fail, but also that the developer was told about it, that the developer built it, that the developer tested it, and the developer signed off on it, and then it went back to the user, and that the user tested it, and the user accepted it, and the user signed off on it. It's a ton of documentation that you have to do there for sure. All right. Good. Your best bet is probably on D there for sure. All right. Now I think we're going to go into some training here. So this, I feel like I've been very negative. I'm usually a super positive guy, but I get re-stimulated on all of the trials and tribulations that we help clients through when we talk about implementation pitfalls. So you have to excuse me. But you're there. This first bullet, right? Well, we paid for training to come from our implementation partner. Okay, but does your implementation partner really know your business? Like really know your business? Well, they spent 6 months with us, or they spent 9 months with you. Who did? The developers did. The trainers didn't. And I'm sorry, but in this day and age, software trainers are so busy that they're basically training off of like a standard configuration of the app, and that might be very different than yours. Oh, but Shawn, they asked me about my customizations. That's great. That's fine. Have that person train the trainers at your company, and then your trainers, right, which is code for your already busy people who are smart software people, have them train your end users. They speak the language, they know the software, it'll go much better. We actually even know sometimes our clients, they're so busy during the implementation and they don't do their training that we know that go live is going to be UAT, and that sounds extremely dangerous, and I don't want anybody to do it. But if you have to, make sure you have a ton of resources available during go live so that when the users are finally testing, really using the software, because they wouldn't come to your 6 different training sessions that you scheduled, despite the CEO sending the divisional lead many emails. Just treat go live as your UAT. It's horrible. It's because the problem is that you have people's lives that just get impacted and they have to work a ton. But that comes from sometimes just the inability to plan. And the realities of businesses. We've had some clients that are acquiring businesses during the implementation, and those key people go off and do integration projects with the merged companies. You're like, we need those people for the project. Things do happen. So you have to certainly work around them. Like I said, there's really no surprises in ERP failures, just the inability to communicate. All right. Okay, one more thing to keep in mind. You're going to probably need help on the project. I think you're seeing that already. But we have come in sometimes and folks have said, look, we really need some help. We want you to come in and do blah, 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 right? Or you go find some contractors, or you go do whatever. I can tell you that sometimes people have come to us and say we need help, and we say, you actually don't need help. Your key people are so busy, wait to do the project to when they have more availability. You can't hire some skills, right? When our company, my company comes in to help you with these projects, there's things we do better than anybody in the world on ERP implementations. But there's things that we don't do that your key people have to do. And if they're not available, you really need to look at that before you start the project. But sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and get the project started. And then folks like us can come in and certainly help. But you should look at the amount of experience that your team has. You should look at their real bandwidth. And for sure, a lot of folks that listen to our calls are the sponsors that are driving the decision with the CEOs, with the board, to get these projects approved. You should put some money aside to bonus your people, maybe even yourself, because you are taking on a whole other job basically by doing this. So there's a little bonus there. All right. I think I've talked enough. Let's go to our next slide.
The next slide's actually the closeout, but we have some questions. So
okay, perfect. Yeah, but I did want to just say, I'm being a little more negative than I normally am, but I really do want you to know you can take everything I said, right, and you can put this in a positive vein of the things that you do need to do to have a successful implementation, avoid the pitfalls, and you can radically change your organization for decades by doing this right. There's tons and tons of value there. Just go into it with your eyes wide open. That's all that I ask you to do. All right, Rebecca, over to you.
Definitely. All right. So we had a question a little earlier in the call. They said where they find during the needs analysis phase, most companies don't fully grasp their needs or like what they find during that process. She's found that swim lane roles, process, and data capture can really help. What other methods have you seen work to analyze needs during that phase?
No, that's a good question. I think you could probably go to our site and type in business process ecosystem. We'll test our search engine on our website. That's a tool that we developed based off some methodology from other organizations. But one thing I would just say on that is you need to have kind of a higher level view. See, swim lanes are really good, but you need the context of the overall organization end to end. Think of it as a puzzle box. Start with a puzzle box, and then you can dive into multi-level process diagrams. And that's what we call business process ecosystem, which sort of shows, order to cash, procure to pay, all the different higher level business processes of the organization. It could be government, it could be, financial institutions, whatever it is. But start with that one picture, and then that can sort of be your roadmap to here's what's in scope for the software and here's what's out of scope. So I think there's a lot of tools like the listener just said that are more detailed oriented. There's tons of requirements, tracking software and things like that. But usually the biggest gap we see is more of the high level view where you have tools and diagrams that you can go to the rest of the organization and communicate, hey, when we talk about ERP, this is what we mean.
Great. And then another question was that finance tends to be scarce during meetings. They're invited, but most of the time they don't show up or show up too late. Have you found a way to get them involved at the beginning? And I think this can apply to not just finance, but I think we've seen it in other projects as well.
Yeah, I think the finance people on the call who, maybe we're talking about finance versus accounting, but I think the finance people on the call would say manufacturing doesn't come to the meetings, they're too busy, or sales doesn't come to the. You're right, Rebecca, that it can happen with any division across the organization where they're too busy for the project. Here's the thing that if use it as an indicator and don't forget it. If they're too busy early, how are they going to be later when you need to do testing and you really need their time? Use the obvious, observe the obvious, you could say, of who wants to be involved and who needs to be involved, but who also doesn't want to be involved as a major indicator for the risks of your project. And if the key people, say finance or accounting, maybe we're talking about two different departments there. But if finance is vital to your project and they're not showing up, I would say, definitely can certainly talk to, the executive team that's at the top. But I would have a frank conversation with them and just say, we're not going to be able to do this without you. And maybe we shouldn't do it. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't go into a project without having the really key sponsors fully supporting you, so that when there are problems later, you can go back to those sponsors and say, hey, your people aren't showing up and you said they would. I need you to do something after you've escalated, with individuals and that kind of thing.
Great. We actually have two more questions that came in while you were answering the other ones. So the first one is, what is best practice for post-go live change management? What level of supporting documentation should be included?
Yeah. So when we're talking about change management post go live, we're usually talking about the software change management process. So how are we doing enhancements, bug fixes, and those kinds of things? And a lot of times, we don't, companies, I'd say, individuals don't even think about that. They're so tired from ERP fatigue of phase one that they don't even think about putting in a good change control process over time with the software. So I'm going to take that angle on that question versus like change management of the people. It is really important that you do have some people, right? Not just IT that manage your ongoing enhancement request list for the software. You will get more and more and more enhancements. And I would even say, I mean, we could do a whole series on phase 2 and phase 1.1 and phase 1.5 and all that stuff of after the first go live, what you do. But you need a cross-functional team that's vested in the software. And it could only be 3 people. It doesn't have to be that many that can keep, an IT can keep the enhancement list in some place. But you need those, say, 3 to 5 people. I wouldn't do more than that to prioritize that list of enhancements and what should get done and when. It really needs to be driven internally by those, again, the key stakeholders who really own the system. We're not talking about CFO, CEO level. We're really talking about, say, controller, director of operations, maybe there's an inside sales manager, that level of people who are really using the software and their teams are using the software the most to come up with, okay, here's really what we need. And then you can give that to IT to go kind of figure out how to get that built and the timing and rough orders of magnitude and all that stuff. But that cross-functional team of 3 to 5 people is really the key. And then I think we have time for one more question, Rebecca.
Yes, this one is the last one that we're going to answer, unfortunately, but it is kind of a two-parter. So the first part is, what is a typical timeline for an implementation start to go live?
We got one client that shut down their accounting department for an entire month and went live with NetSuite. That was pretty wild. They didn't pay a vendor. They didn't even process invoices. Seriously, they just focused 100% of their like 6 people on nothing but getting into the software. Now, that was an extreme. Now we've had other clients that have taken multiple years, $100 million manufacturers taken multiple years because of tons and tons of customizations that they've needed to do and iterate. But usually a decent sized organization, 100 million in revenue, maybe 500 employees, maybe even downwards to 25 million or, maybe 100, maybe 50 employees, however you want to look at that. It's about 6 months to a year. I wouldn't really extend beyond a year at all. I would never. Now, when I used to implement large scale ERPs, those are multi-year, multi-million dollar projects. Mid-size organizations can usually do a project in 6 to 9 months and get a ton of value out of the software, get into a new platform. And then they're enhancing, with maybe it's every 6 months they do a release, or maybe every year they do something going forward. But that's a good consumable range, right? Like I said earlier, and my final thought here is that you want to win. When you do ERP, win. Don't do a ginormous project where the scope just gets, engorged and you can't deliver anything. Deliver something. You're going to get something out of it that could really change your organization for the long term. And that is the spirit of everything that we've talked about today, is that's what we want for you. We want your survival of your company and your to flourish and prosper with your new ERP. And so the shorter you can keep your implementation window, the less risk there is. It's a little bit like heart surgery. The longer the patient's open, the more risk there is. So, doing a smaller window of like a 6 month, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, is usually a very successful thing to do.
Wonderful. And I'll wrap it up, but I think that did answer the second half of their question, which was the big bang versus waterfall approach. And really what Shawn's getting at too is sometimes it's easier to just get the ERP in place and then you can optimize the system as you go. Sometimes we do encourage clients to get their third-party systems, bolt-ons in place at go live if it's vital functionality. But typically it's a lot better to get something there, the minimum viable product, and then continue moving forward from there.
That's right.
Wonderful. So thank you so much, Shawn. Sorry, I know that more chats are coming through, but we got to wrap this up today, unfortunately, and I will be more than happy to respond to some emails and answer questions as well. Thank you again, Shawn, for joining us. That's lots of great information as always. And thank you everyone who joined and interacted with us today. If you have any questions or they weren't answered during this presentation, please do not hesitate to reach out and let us know. I know that, like I said, lots of you are coming through right now. So please email me, rebecca.mccabe@erpadvisorsgroup.com, or Elizabeth, if you're emailing her for your CPE, she can pass that information along to me as well. Also, if you would like a copy of the deck from today's presentation and you were unable to get it from the resources, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We'll get that over to you. Or if you need help with your own ERP project, there is a link to schedule a consultation. It's free. Speak to one of us. We'll help you figure out where you need to go. And again, if you need CPE credit for today's presentation, please make sure your name is either in the chat, that you participated in all of the polling questions, and that you were here for the full 50 minutes. Or you can email Elizabeth with that information as well. And be sure to join us for our next event, which is scheduled for Thursday, October 16th. And that is at 12 p.m. Mountain, Emerging Threats to Your ERP, Confronting the Dark Side of AI, where we will be joined by very special guest James McQuiggan for the 6th year in a row. He is a cybersecurity expert from KnowBe4. Him and Shawn will discuss the major risks AI's developments pose to enterprises, and then they will dive into how businesses can actually protect themselves from those AI-fueled cyber attacks. Please go to our website, erpadvisorsgroup.com, for more details and to register. And I'm going to go to the next slide with more of Shawn's information in case anybody needs it. But ERP Advisors Group is one of the country's top independent enterprise software advisory firms. ERP Advisors Group advises mid to large-sized businesses on selecting and implementing business applications from enterprise resource planning, customer relationship management, human capital management, business intelligence, and other enterprise applications, which equate to millions of dollars in software deals each year across many industries. This has been the ERP Advisor. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.